Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Prospero.ai stock market live streams. It's been a minute since I've seen you guys. We were only live once last week because George was in London, which he'll give us an update when he joins the stream today. I believe he's back in New York this week. We had to change times for his flight schedule, but we are streaming twice again this week. So good to see everyone back in here. We got a ton of great topics for today. The market is being a bit negative today. Let's take a live look at the overall markets. We are red across the board, with the QQQ being the most red and the Russell being the least. Hey, Grumble, nice to see you on Twitter. We got a comment for those on YouTube. But yeah, we have a lot of topics today. It looks like a lot of the stuff that's been doing well recently is kind of selling off. A lot of the high flyers, more growth, more frothy areas of the market giving back a bit today. So is that something that we're going to continue seeing, or is that kind of just a pit stop? We'll discuss when George gets in here and his overall view of the markets. We were expecting a Santa Claus rally. We were getting a Santa Claus rally before today. So hopefully that will resume in brief time. But we have more topics to get into, like how the global ad market is expected to go crazy, has gone crazy, and it's hitting a huge milestone in 2024. For those who get our newsletters or watch a lot of these streams, we've covered Meta for over a year now, and a smaller stock that got on our radar earlier this year that looked great in our signals, at Lovin, another player in that space. So space seems to be booming as the economy is holding up well. There was news of a candy maker giant being possibly taken over. A lot of these stocks have been hit hard, I think, honestly, because of the RFK news and his Make America Healthy Again campaign. But Hershey stock rose after it was announced that Mondelez is looking to take them over. Mondelez is the maker of Oreos and a lot of other popular snacks, and they previously tried to take Hershey's over in 2016 at a bid of 23 billion, and it didn't go through. So, will it be more successful now? Hershey's was moving higher, Mondelez was moving lower. So, it seems like people who invested in Mondelez either didn't like this news or aren't expecting it to happen. And one of the high flyers that aligns pretty well with what I was saying in the beginning of the stream, how they're declining today, is Palantir. We need to get an updated look at Palantir because it has been on an epic run. We've covered as it's risen throughout the course of this year. But now, after today, where it opened up higher, I believe like 5% or so, and then sold off just about the same amount negative, is that the top, or what does that mean for that stock going forward from here? It's probably going to be a similar conversation to the overall market. Like, is today's action that we're seeing a new concerning trend, or is it just a pit stop? And we'll get back to the market that we had been in last week. And a stock that we cover often, NVIDIA, got a negative news story happening today. And it was one that George was calling for before, actually, when we were covering NVIDIA before their most recent earnings, about how there could be some troubling news stories going around with the China relations and US and NVIDIA and how it all ties together. And we got one of those headlines today. It was interesting that it came from the Chinese government kind of regulating and investigating NVIDIA, but we'll give you more details on that story and how concerned you should be about it. Then we have Reddit releasing a new AI feature where their content is going to be purely AI generated for people asking questions within Reddit. And I'm wondering, is this a sign of the times? And we're going to see AI content all across the internet, and what percentage that will be going forward. Because, as of right now, I think most of the content you read and see is probably done by people, but in 10 or 20 years, what percentage of the content that's put across the internet is going to be just purely AI generated? So we'll see how George feels about that. Then, I don't know, we have 60 people on the stream, so hopefully I see 60 likes across YouTube and Twitter, and we'll see how many people like this news that we got late last night. Do we have any MLB fans in the stream right now? If you're an MLB fan, let me see in the comments, specifically Mets fans, because you might be having a happy day today. I am a Mets fan, so I am one of those happy people. The Mets signed Juan Soto to a historic deal. We stole him from the Yankees, 765 million over 15 years for Juan Soto. Um, and it's, I believe, the largest deal in net value in MLB history. Go Braves! The Braves have been a pain in my side for a long time, Joseph. So, you got a good bunch over there. So you guys are doing pretty good too. We're trying to catch up to you guys. But when you compare the Juan Soto deal to, I think George might be in the stream. I'll let George join in. But when you compare it to some historic deals, specifically, I want to bring up on the stream later, uh, the total amount that Michael Jordan made in his NBA career, it's staggering. And, is this due to the business of sports booming or the just crazy amount of inflation that we've seen? And maybe that we didn't even realize was as big as it has been over the last 4 or 5 decades. And then last but not least, before we close out the stream with the model portfolio update at the very end, I want to get into the Fed because we haven't talked about the Fed in a while. It's been kind of quiet in that regard, but there is a meeting coming up, and they are still expected to cut rates during in that meeting. But I think the outlook beyond that is a little bit more murky, and does it have the potential where the Fed cuts, but they're a little bit more hawkish um, in their tone and how they're projecting things going forward? And will that kind of negatively impact the market from there? And then at the end of the stream, we will wrap it up today with the model portfolio update, which should be a good one because of the big moves and the changing dynamics that we were seeing in the markets. If you're on YouTube, you see George commented, my camera is being weird, trying to restart my computer. So we'll see if George is able to get his camera rolling. What I'll do now for you all is, first of all, if you aren't checking the QQQ and SPY net option sentiment in the Prospero app daily, you should start because it's a really good indicator of how the market's going to move, especially if you are checking it daily. You'll know kind of the levels it's been at and whether if it's trending lower or trending higher and how that can impact the markets. But I'm going to pull up the QQQ for us to look at right now. And QQQ is currently at 42, which is slightly lower than levels it's been at recently. It's kind of peaked in the high 40s and bottomed out in the low 40s recently. So it's near the low end, and we're seeing the market go down today. So that would make sense. I see a comment from Jonathan on YouTube. Tom Ricketts purchased the Cubs for $845 million 15 years ago. Juan Soto got $765 million. Crazy. Yeah, Jonathan, it is absolutely insane. And although, I'm very happy, Mets fan, Juan Soto, we're building a nice little bunch with our, if you, Jonathan, you're a regular on the stream, so you've seen us talk about Steve Cohen. So he's got all the money in the world to do it. But I think baseball is the sport that has the worst balance of money within the league, where some teams just seem to have almost no chance to land these guys. Um, while the same teams over and over, Dodgers, Yankees, Mets, and a few others, Mets now just very recently, seem to always be in the mix for these big free agents. So, yeah, it's crazy, but I'm happy for my Mets. It's been a long time since we were good and we're building something. So, good to see. But anyway, back to the market. Let's look at the SPY net options sentiment. And it is at 35, and it was at 27 at 12:30 p.m. today. And if you look at the trend of net option sentiment for the SPY within Prospero now, I would say it's starting to look fairly concerning to the point where it's almost hinting that we will get a maybe bigger pullback with how it's starting to trend um, a lot lower in the very recent history. I'm checking. So today's December 9th. So yeah, since last Thursday when it peaked at 41, It's now a sharp decline. So things not looking so good for the SPY. Maybe you want to um, play more in the tech area of the market as the QQQ is holding up much better. Um, but let's see if George can join on in here for the stream. We are 10 minutes in. I see 86 people have tuned into the stream. Let me do a live look at the likes. I know George is the guy who drives you guys all in here. So let's see how many likes just Steven, a solo Steven, can get on YouTube. Okay, we're up to 7, so not too bad. Let's try to get to double digits before George joins in here. Hopefully, it's sooner rather than later. But okay, we're up to 8, so we're doing our thing. Is there any stocks while we're just buying time here before George just gets in here? Is there any stocks, trades, moves that come to your mind where the Prospero app was particularly helpful for you in trading this year and investing this year? Um, I'd like to hear some or see some stories about how the app has invested you, because now that I've been starting the stream with George, we started in, I believe, May of 2023. So it's about a year and a half almost. Yeah, just about a year and a half since I've started. And since then, I've really started to look at the Prospero signals much more. And honestly, I'm impressed just from like a true perspective, just that some of the moves it's been able to signal in the market. Some that come to my mind are SMCI, obviously before it went lower, back when our signals were so bullish on it, before um, most people in the market were talking about it. And then AppLovin recently has been absolutely insane to watch that stock, which I had never even heard of a few months ago. And I'm someone who talks about the markets and the stocks with George all the time, and look at the stock market daily. Just to see that stock blow up and how the Prospero signals predicted it, it's pretty crazy to see, and it's made me realize recently how impactful the signals seem to be on stocks that are in the mid or smaller cap. And when the signals look very good on those companies, I get a lot more confident in the move. I see comments from Grumble on Twitter. It was super useful for app meta, APO, GSAT. I've only been using it for a month. Game changer. That's great to hear, Grumble. Yeah, we talked about, I don't know if you're a newer viewer of the stream. I feel like I recognize your name. We talked about GSAT on here, I think either last week or the week before, and how it started looking pretty good. So yeah, whether you're just looking at in the Prospero app itself or watching these streams, hopefully it's pretty helpful for you guys in your investing and your trading. I see George joined us with the backup camera, so it looks like
Today.
the other one was being difficult. Although it is a nice
Yeah,
crisp
that camera
image today.
setup was
So
not working.
yeah, I've just been talking here with some of our loyal viewers who are kind enough to wait out our technical glitches, but looks like we are in business now, and we were just spitballing about how the Prospera app has helped, us in our investing and trading. So uh, we've just been buying time, but let's get into our first topics of the day. So I noticed today, obviously the markets are lower, but it seemed like a lot of the stocks that have recently had good runs, and maybe they were a bit in the frothier segment of the market. They had higher valuations, higher growth potential type of stocks. Some that have struggled for a long time before their recent run seem to be giving back today. So, is that a sign of market frothiness? And do you expect this move we're seeing today to kind of continue in the coming days? Do you think we'll restart the Santa rally? How do you see next few trading days playing out?
Well, what I'm doing today, whenever you see stocks run the way that like some of our stocks have, I always want to give it one day because they could really swing right back in the other direction, right? And you know, they had such accelerations in price. Like I'm thinking about AppLovin especially, that really took a hit today. That's been on such a meteoric rise. A correction is expected at some point. So I have to see like right away tomorrow. I'm pretty much going to see if that correction continues. And then option sentiment is pretty good. I haven't looked at it in a couple hours. We have to see if that continues or the downward price, in which case we'll probably seriously consider getting out, or not. And then it might just recover. It could easily like swing back plus 5% tomorrow.
Yeah, and you mentioned AppLovin, and watching this move in that stock has been absolutely insane. And it's so cool to see that happen when we've been talking about AppLovin and you've been writing about it, and the signals have been so bullish on it. But I saw this stat here today that I'm going to share, which maybe is part of the reason why a stock like AppLovin can make such a big move. The global ad revenue is expected to surpass $1 trillion in 2024. And you know, is that kind of legitimizing the move that AppLovin has made recently? And are Signals another stock that they've liked? Maybe not as much recently, but especially earlier this year and last year was Meta, and both of those are big players in the ad space. So, um, does that give you confidence that this AppLovin move can uh, continue, or the fact that it just won't like give back all those gains? There'll be a quick dip and go from there.
Well, that's what's really, we always say that the big value investing thing that, where people like Buffett for a long time didn't even invest in tech stocks was they said it's hard to tell the amount of growth that's built into the price, right? And that's a hard thing because people are anticipating that big growth in the app sector, right? How much of it is built in the price? Hard to really say solidly. But it's kind of like if we're in a market that's excitable, you're definitely going to see, a lot of that kind of stuff continue. And, kind of what some people might say overvaluation, but what some people might say, the proper amount of significant growth that's built into an exciting, subsector.
Yeah, and another stock that I guess is kind of in a similar boat and even making a similar move as AppLovin today is Palantir, which I wanted to just bring up and get an updated view on that stock because it's another one that has just had this insane move. And it's wild for me to see stocks that have this large of market caps making these moves. Like Palantir is approaching a $200 billion market cap. To see it move like 5-10% each day is kind of crazy. Do you have any updated thoughts on Palantir? Do you think this move is warranted? I saw some people getting actually, which initially I thought would be negative for Palantir, Doge, the Elon and Vivek, like cutting the budget. They were actually trying to spin it as bullish for Palantir because they thought that that Doge would bring in, Palantir, who is so efficient in the use of their data and how they operate to maybe make the government more efficient. So, what do you think in that regard?
Well, Palantir is kind of like a Trump trade, not one that I've liked as much as like Coin or Tesla, because Coin and Tesla traded, better PE ratios, especially focusing in on that. And yeah, I think especially I think Palantir is like a 4 P. I haven't checked. I'll check right now. Yeah, 168.02, right? And a TTM of 381.70. That's there's a lot to be expected, same kind of thing with with JD Vance is very close to Peter Thiel. They're very, that is a very close link that we're looking at. But it's the kind of the same thing I said with DJT. Even with that link, I think there's better values than Palantir. It doesn't mean it won't be a great investment over the next 4 years. In fact, I think anything that's linked to the Trump administration probably will. I just like other stocks better.
And do you pay any mind to the way that some of these stocks sold off today, like Tesla and Palantir, for example? They both opened up like 3, 4, 5% and then instantly sold off. Does that type of move, and like if you're a technical trader and you're looking at like the candlesticks and any of that type of things, does that affect the way you view these companies, or no, you're more of, the Prospero signals and the valuations and, on that end?
Well, I think you have to take technical seriously, especially if stocks have run like this, right? Because they could run back in the other direction. So yeah, I definitely that's why we're adding technical flow. I definitely think it's important.
Oh, and I kind of just skipped over the fact I wanted to ask you about, London. Look, I see you're back in New York City today, so welcome back to the States. If you just want to mention anything about your trip, how it went, I know you spoke with the Finimize event, so how was that?
Yeah, can't wait for the video to come out. Um, I had a really good panel with the um CEO with the head of eToro US. Um, and um, yeah, I think that I'm not sure the in-person panel I had the next day that was more about like how to spot the next big thing. Will get online. But you guys hear that all the time here, so.
Yeah, we already did
But
that with Apple Oven and SMCI.
yeah, I got rave reviews though.
Well, then, if we might not see it, what was the general gist? Was it follow the Prospero signals? I feel like that's pretty
Oh no,
good.
I called out Coinbase. I called out IonQ as something that was in a more burgeoning industry. I told about like a little bit how um how we identified things like app level using our signals. But yeah, a lot of it was stuff that people have heard. Use a process. I really emphasize that part.
Mhm. Oh, and that's funny you mentioned user process. I added an AMC short for later today. I noticed we were getting a lot less comments on our videos in the past few days as AMC has gone down. So I think those are the people who, if you are preaching, user process, who should hear that message. So, I just have to add that in there as I saw AMC stock was down, but not dunking on anyone. I just hope people, it was weird seeing all those comments when the stock is up like 10% after it's been down so much. So, yeah, it looks like all is right in the world again. One move I wanted to talk about, which was announced during market hours today, was Hershey stock rising and Mondelez stock dropping after it was announced that Mondelez is attempting a takeover bid on Hershey's. These companies have some history. It was attempted back in 2016 by Mondelez. At that time, their offer was 23 billion. I didn't see any specifics on the amounts this time around, but I feel like two giants in one sector, like Hershey's and Mondelez, even you know, even Mondelez being interested in Hershey's, is that a sign of the times of how the regulations are changing? Because we saw so many people and companies denied making mergers in the past year, 2 years. So is this a sign that we're going to see more of these in the coming couple years?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen in a variety of situations that people are expecting a friendlier, business friendly environment, right? So I do think we might see, especially ones that might have been waiting for the right time, um, to do that. Yeah, I think we might see a trend.
Um, is there anything to know as a retail investor when you see like so Mondelez stock instantly went down off this news? Um, and I feel like it's typically bullish for a company to look to acquire another company. Uh, how should you feel about that if you're a Mondelez shareholder? What is there to know about the fact that the stock went down, other than obviously the investors in that company don't view it positively? But is there anything more below the surface to know about a move like that?
Um, I think just what the perception is that when you see moves like that they expect um, Hershey to get a premium, and the inverse of that is like Mondelez might be overpaying. Like so, Hershey gets an immediate premium, but then as it goes more in the longer term, if they integrate properly, they'll realize that value and they'll realize that scale. They don't always go that way. Um, Sometimes they go sometimes both companies will go up on acquisition news, but when you see that kind of response, there's definitely there's a market perception that they're overpaying or expecting to overpay.
So we'll have to watch and see if there's more details to come on that in the near future, because the big food space I feel like has been kind of underperforming the markets recently, maybe due to RFK and the Make America Healthy Again stuff. I feel like could be kind of causing those stocks to go down. So it'll be interesting to see how those companies play out in the coming months, and once more details on that exact story come out. But I think this story is something that you were kind of predicting, George, over the past couple of months because there was headlines coming out today about Nvidia, which hasn't moved higher recently. It's kind of been stuck trading sideways about how China is opening an investigation over possible violations of anti-monopoly laws. And you've been highlighting about the tensions between Nvidia, China, and the USA, how that could weigh on the stock with the next administration taking over. And it's already coming to fruition. So should be no surprise to you. But is this story a real concern for Nvidia?
Looks like another one that we were right about, right? I think like and we always kind of think in these logical frameworks, right? And uh with Trump kind of firing shots at China, we kind of said Nvidia really depends on China business. And if China wants to fire shots back, Nvidia was a logical target. So we use a logical framework to do that. Looks like we were right. That's going to be interesting. That's why we stayed away. And it wasn't just Nvidia. We said we weren't really interested in chips. We haven't been investing in any chip stocks. And it looks like for valid reasons.
So when we were talking about how this drama could play out with Nvidia, I was personally thinking about it like the USA's government taking negative actions towards Nvidia to like fight the China battle. But now that it's coming from the China government as well, it looks like Nvidia could be sandwiched in the middle of the two. And is that like a major? How concerning would that be if you're an Nvidia shareholder? Um, do you think that can like really drag on the company, or is it kind of something that's going to keep it trading sideways, or is it a net negative that we're going to see the shares possibly be negative for like the full year of 2025 or something to that effect?
I mean, it's hard to tell when people start seeing value again. It can get beat up a lot and then say people start to say that there's value. But I think that's kind of the issue with you know, there's some stability for the markets in terms of like support for certain things that people think are very pro Trump, but Trump's a pretty volatile guy, and like sometimes these things can if it escalates, if he says something that pisses off China and they escalate more, like it's an active situation.
So we'll keep our eyes on that. One thing that is interesting regarding the China, since we're on the topic, is that a lot of those stocks are up today. I'm not sure if there's any newsworthy event that happened, but um, the whole move in those stocks has been kind of like really wild over the past couple months. The way they ripped higher like so quickly in the end of September, beginning of October, and then just have slowly given it all back. And you had guys like David Tepper go on CNBC and say like he's going to invest in everything like right at the top of that rally, and now they've kind of done nothing. Do you think they could, enough time has passed, enough was given back in those stocks where we could see them go higher, or are they just not interesting to you because there's other interesting opportunities? Do you have any thoughts on those companies?
I think I look at them very similarly to how I look at the chip stocks, where it's just like there's a lot of unknowns here, and we have to kind of like. I just think there's a lot of like. Let's put it this way. I think there's a lot of easy targets like Coinbase and Tesla and things like that. Like, why would you go for something that has so many more unknowns?
Okay, so this next story is in the AI world. So Reddit is beginning to test a new AI feature where users can ask questions within Reddit, and all of the content that is responded to the question is AI generated. And it got me thinking, um, just how much of the content online in the future will be, fully AI generated. And actually, after I got this topic today, OpenAI released Sora, which is the video AI generation content. So,
Genie
do you
2
think,
is really interesting as well.
yeah, so like if you could guess a percentage of the content in like 10 years from now, um, that is AI generated, and then do you think there's a difference between like written and video content, and if those are going to have different percentages, or are they kind of one and the same?
No, I think we're going to get to a point where we're like maybe even 80% or higher for both. The robots are coming.
And so I don't know if there is a public number about like what percentage of the trades in the market are AI already, or robotic, or algorithmic, or however you'd want to say it. But um, which do you think will be higher in the future? The AI generated content or the AI trading levels? Uh, or just, you said AI is taking over, so maybe they'll just both be as high as one another. But any thoughts on that?
Um, I mean, I think we just know it's gonna like proliferate a lot, and it may accelerate, and it may accelerate its acceleration. But it's very other than like an extreme confidence that we're gonna get a lot of prevalence. That's really all I'm sure of.
Yeah, we'll have to watch how the AI race develops and what companies spur up out of it. Um, the next topic is one near and dear to my heart as a Mets fan. Last night, late at night, we got some good news for our Mets community that we are signing Juan Soto to a $765 million deal over 15 years. And it sent the sports world a buzz, the business world a buzz. One stat that was very interesting that I saw people posting was the fact that in Michael Jordan's entire career, which was 16 years, he made $94 million, and now we have Juan Soto making set to make 765 over 15 years. So I think the big question, tying this back to business and finances, that how much bigger Juan Soto's contract is. Do you think that's due to the business of sports booming, or is it this sneaky thing called inflation over the past decades that has just kind of made our money become worth less and less? But which do you think it is?
I mean, I think it's mostly just the sports market, just like blowing up. Some of it is inflation, but if you look at the values of these teams, like even bad teams, their value just goes like up, up, up. And I mean, it's one of those things that I mean, it's kind of downstream inflation, but I think like more than inflation, it's just I think how much more money like the top 1% is getting. Because I think that's when you're talking about like the nicest seats and these luxury boxes and things like that. The amount that those go up is just like really accelerating versus the price of like normal tickets. And then you have like the television revenues that are just getting like so big. And I think there's more international attention, but I think it's more just like these sports are getting huge.
And that's a good point about the top 1%. I wasn't thinking about that before you joined the stream. When we were talking about the topics, Jonathan mentioned how 15 years ago, $845 million is what the Chicago Cubs sold for, and now Juan Soto is getting 765 million. So you mentioned, even the worst teams being worth more now. Yeah, it's a pretty crazy world. I'm wondering now. We're seeing so much destruction in the media and content on TV. I'm wondering if that destruction is kind of boosting sports and it's not just like a net loss, it's going somewhere else. And that's why we're seeing sports become so popular and all this money flow into that. Um, do you think that there's a case to be made there?
Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those things where people wouldn't be paid this much if they weren't getting something on the other end, right?
Hmm.
And I think sports have just become that big and that much of a spectacle. Um, and I think some of it drives itself. Like, so, like Yankee Stadium, for example, everybody's like, oh, it like lost the charm that it used to have, right? And some of that's true. Tickets have gotten way more expensive. I remember going to like bleacher games there as a kid. Like some of it has just gotten way more expensive. Um, and so I think some of that is like circular, right? These contracts are getting bigger, and then to pay those contracts, you need the new stadiums, you need the more expensive tickets. So I do think it's like some of it's a bit chicken or an egg, but yeah.
And Steve Cohen is living proof. You can pay the biggest fine in what was it, SEC history, and then pay the biggest contract in MLB history. So
There you go.
he's doing it right. Um, one thing we haven't talked about in a while, and I feel like there's just kind of been no news out of the Fed recently, but we do have a meeting coming up next week. The market is still expecting the Fed to cut rates in December, but there is starting to be a lot of debate about the Fed going beyond that. And I'm wondering, um, I think the Fed will cut rates, which the market expects. But if Jerome Powell is hawkish in the way he speaks, could that spook markets? If he's dovish in the way he speaks, will that boost markets? And which way do you think he will decide to go with what we've seen in the market recently? And what stance will he take?
Well, I mean, I think it's very interesting, um, for all the critiques that Trump had about the economy, that he's now saying he's going to keep on Powell. Um, but I definitely think that uh, what are the? I kind of want to see the odds right now. Let's see. Oh, yeah, pretty big odd of a cut. I actually thought it might be bigger of staying neutral, but the numbers have been coming in pretty good. So yeah, that big of an odd of the cut. And like actually Powell, like I was gonna say if Powell was like gonna be like a lame duck, maybe he would have left it uh unchanged just to make sure his legacy was, getting rid of inflation as much as possible. But now that he might stay on, um, I think that's probably why people are leaning towards a cut. Maybe trying to keep his job.
Do you think he'll talk hawkishly though in the meeting with how the market has run up? I mean, before today, with a little bit we've given back, it was just making like
No,
new
I think
highs
that's the
day after
same.
day.
I think that's the same thing I'm saying. That like,
Hmm.
um, I think he won't talk. Like, I think to keep his job, I think he's gonna. I think he's gonna. Try and keep um as solid as possible.
Hmm. So I have one more area of the market to ask you about, but I'll just tell our viewers right now if you have any questions, anything we didn't cover on the stream so far, feel free to comment them and we'll get to them. I just want to ask about oil, which we haven't talked about in a minute, and Trump has obviously um, shared how bullish he wants to be on the oil markets. He's quoted as saying "drill, baby, drill" over and over. We have stocks like Oxy, which are still negative year to date. Oxy is actually down over 18%. That's the one that Warren Buffett is in and backing. That's why I bring it up. But any interest there? I see Oxy in the Prospero app. It has a 69 net option sentiment, which I feel like for an oil company is probably not too bad. Are you feeling any type of way about the space in particular heading into 2025?
Sorry, one more time.
Just the oil sector, Oxy in
Yeah, I mean
particular.
it's been so up and down. It's very hard. Um, it's like that's a sector I went short energy this time and this week, and I feel like it's often going in the opposite direction. When it's down, it doesn't keep going down, and like yeah, like it's a very confusing. It did very well when Trump first got um elected here, and then it started going in the other direction again. It's hard.
Do you think sectors that haven't performed well in 2024 as the market has gone to new all-time highs, um, is it like, the rubber band that everybody talks about where they'll spring back up and catch up? Or is it just more specific on the things and dynamics that we're seeing play out, in the world and what people are talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I
Um,
think, I mean, I think we're dealing with two things. I think we're dealing with kind of like worries in the Middle East, and then we're dealing with the perception that um, it's going to be a friendly U.S. for energy. So I think there's like those two things are kind of going after like one after each other.
mhm. I see a question from Jonathan talking about in the Prospero app, is there a reason why dark pool is red now?
Red.
I don't see that in my app, Jonathan, but I'm looking at it currently.
Oh, we instituted some. What stock is it for?
Let's see what Jonathan
We
answers.
instituted some new things that just basically says if the number gets a certain amount of age, it appears as red. because some of the numbers are getting old.
He commented Meta.
Yeah, it just means that number is probably getting a little old for Meta.
Okay, that's a good.
It doesn't look red for me.
No, it doesn't for me either. But that is an interesting thing to notice, Jonathan.
Let me see. I could not have the updated app. Let me look at it. Yeah, that would be my guess, but it doesn't look red for me.
So if that number has like been unchanged for a certain amount of time, it'll turn red, or if it just hasn't updated in a certain amount of time.
Updated in a certain amount of time.
Okay. All right. That's actually a very good question to ask, Jonathan. So hopefully, if other people have seen that, he said he's on an Android too. Maybe that affects it versus iPhone users. Um, but we have flown through the topics today, so I think you're already set up in the Prospero.ai laboratory. But we'll turn it over to the model portfolio update, which I'm excited to see as we're getting so much movement in the market today. Seems like there could be some, you know,
Yeah,
good momentum scores or negative momentum scores. We'll have to see, but
let's
should be
get
an
it.
interesting update.
All right. You got my QQQ SPY net option sentiment.
Yes, I do.
What are we looking at? Oh, let me share my screen. Hold on, I'm just doing one more thing. Okay, let's get this going. What are they?
So QQQ is 41 and SPY is 31.
Yeah. I think it's still good. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Are there any? Wow, that's interesting. As bad of a day this is, decent number of sectors are green. I think it's probably large cap growth that's getting hit the most, but we'll see. Or just growth in general. Growth did well last week.
Surprising number of stocks green here, but it looks like we definitely want to rethink communications, financials, and technology on the bull side.
Oh yeah, it's mid cap growth and small cap growth is getting. It's interesting, not necessarily what I would expect. Okay. It's so nice to be back on my big screen. I was working on a little screen for so long. A lot of technology, surprising. Not anything looking good. Maybe we'll grab this and get a little China exposure. I mean, maybe we'll have to ride this out. I'll take both. We'll be quick to exit if things change.
Avgo,
What
the
up?
lone survivor for chips up there, huh?
What? Yeah.
That's yeah, right.
Yeah.
Broadcom.
Yeah. Too small cap. Okay. I think we have MDSR. Okay, there we go. Increasing our exposure. God, sometimes I forget to make a copy. It's very annoying. And then I'm just like overwriting. What day is it today? The 9th. Okay. I think this is the most shorts we've had in a while. All right. Not as bad of a day here as in the other portfolio. this. Okay, that definitely flipped it nicely. Okay. All right. Any other questions?
We do have a question actually. They're asking about technical flow. If you could just, I think they're a little confused about what it is. They've heard you mention it.
It's our newest signal. It's not quite in the app yet. We put it in our newsletters. It's basically just uh, it's basically just um, a lot of different, you know, MACD, RSI, EMAs, SMAs. We just combine it all into one signal, like we do with a lot of other things.
So it's like, combining the options change metrics, it's like combining the technical metrics into one easy. It's like the net option sentiment. It's like the technical version of that, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. So hopefully that's helpful for you, Saucepot. I don't see any other questions in our chat as of now. Looks like we are going to end the day in the red across the board for the markets, but we'll be back live Wednesday, hopefully on a greener day. But until then, thank you, chat. Thank you, George. See you guys soon.